Well, hello, BTB buddies. We are live again, and I'm in my. I'm calling this my studio now because I've got this fake wall behind me that makes me sound a little bit better, but it's just a spare bedroom, and the kitchen is almost completely destroyed. So we got to get new cabinets in there. So settle into the new place, and hopefully. I'll stop working so hard on stuff pretty quick. I do want to talk about our sponsor for this month. It's HelloFresh. If you like to have your food delivered to you and all you got to do is cook it up and you don't have to go to the grocery store, HelloFresh is a great place to do it. Go to HelloFresh.com/BTB16 and use the code BTB16 to get up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. I don't know what the gifts are. They sent me some meals, but they didn't give me any gifts. So, yeah, it's and if you like me, just go to hellofresh.com/BTB16 so it looks like I'm sending people there. I would appreciate it. And if you want to order, it's good food, and it's really helped Lisa and I on our grocery bill because things for two people are just not there anymore. It's just like giant bags of green beans and stuff like that. So it's very difficult. So that is all I've got for sponsors. I am going to go ahead and bring out my guest for tonight, and it's Katie Hannigan.
Hello.
Katie,
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
yeah,
It's
thanks for being on the show. I was fortunate enough to get a advanced copy of your new album. It's called "Feeling of Emptiness," right?
Yes, it is.
And I got to tell you, I listened to it a couple times through, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I hope you take this as a compliment. But what I really enjoyed was the fact that you took like your own personal ideas and your new ideas and your your just whole millennial self and did kind of a traditional stand-up set out of it, and I thought that was really good because you did all the stuff. You had one-liners, you had misdirects, you had stories, and it was just like it was like listening to an old-timey comic doing new stuff. And I hope you take that as a compliment because I really enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you. Well, I am inspired by classic stand-up comedians, and it's the stand-up. I wouldn't even really call it classic, but more of the stand-up of the 80s and 90s. So that's the type
Yeah.
of stand-up that inspires me, and I also find that it's just the type of stand-up that gets the most laughs. I
Yeah.
think there's lots of different styles, and now that I have done that album, I'm interested to, maybe try out some different ones. But
Mhm.
yeah, I was really happy with how it came out. So thank you.
Yeah, I really liked it. I guess my favorite my favorite joke was the weighted blanket one. And
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I actually use a weighted blanket, so it really struck a chord with me, and I just don't think mine's heavy enough. I think I need more poundage.
I think mine's too heavy. I think mine is too heavy because I barely can get it out of the little cubby hole that we keep it in.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
drag it.
I would actually like mine so heavy that I need help getting out of bed. If that could happen, I think it'd be right there where I need it.
I think you're looking for a coffin.
Yeah. There you go. So, thinking about this album, you've got and I listened to a couple of your podcasts. You got a great podcast called the Lady Journey podcast, and
Yes, thank
I
you.
listened to a couple episodes of that. And what I'm gathering from that, you've been doing comedy for about 12, 13 years. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. It's been 12 years. I started in
Okay.
2010. I started right on Valentine's Day. I decided, that's a me thing to do. Go to my
Uh
first
huh.
open mic.
Yeah. And what was that open mic like?
It was interesting. A lot of different things happened for me. First of all, the person I went to see at the open mic, my friend who had invited me to come along with him, I had met him at an acting project. He bombed really, really badly. So I was just taken aback at how badly he did. So it was scary and jarring.
Uh huh.
But I tried my jokes for the first time, and I thought, okay, I think I have an intuitive sense of how to do this, even though I don't know. I want to dig into it, and this kind of like sense of like mystery, and like you have that joy of like putting a puzzle together. That was kind of like activated in me. And then at the same time, I also saw some other comedians who I found were just breathtakingly funny, inventive, and there are people who today are really, really successful. And I saw them all at that very first open mic, and I thought, I went to a theater school, and I thought I want to get in on the ground floor of something that's really cool. I was
Mhm.
into experimental theater and the downtown scene, and I was just kind of looking for that little place I could get my foot in the door of, where I could really see myself going far in a career. And a light bulb went off, and I thought, okay, this is it here. Something
Mhm.
really exciting and neat is happening here.
And from there, when did you decide that, okay, this is going to be something I'm going to do? This is going to be my vocation of choice now.
Oh, it was right away. It was pretty
Was
much
it?
right away. Yeah, because I had moved to New York City pursuing acting. So I was
Mhm.
working in an experimental theater, the Ontological Hysteric Theater, which is a well-known experimental theater from the 70s. It's now defunct. But I was working in
Mhm.
that theater. I was performing with a theater company. I was doing a lot of auditions. And unfortunately, because I really didn't have any connections when I moved to New York, every audition I was able to get was something, awful. Like the haunted house, the local haunted house, and like the
Yeah.
abandoned warehouse, or like student films. And it was just the roles were misogynistic and bad. And I thought, I've always really wanted to be a performer. It's just been kind of a passion I've had my whole life. So I thought,
Mhm.
okay, I think there's something's not fitting together here that I need to sidestep. And after I went to that first open mic, I thought, okay, this is a medium where I can have autonomy over how I'm portrayed, over what I'm saying, and I can perform as much as I want. If I could
Mhm.
see, I can, oh, people go to open mics every single night. That was all I wanted to do. It's really all I've ever wanted to do. It's a bit of an
Mhm.
obsession. So I
How
thought,
did you,
this
how
is
did your comedy and your act progress from year 1 up to year 12 when you're recording this album?
Ooh, that's such an interesting question. I think it's hard to say, but I think in those probably the first 3 to 4 years, I didn't really understand the structure of comedy. I was just kind of, and I do this in a way, I think it's part of the creative process, but just kind of throwing shit at the wall, throwing it,
Mm.
hoping to land on something. And then about year 4, I I was reading a lot of different books, how-to books on comedy. Some made sense, some were just um baffling to me.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand the fundamental building blocks internally until about that third or fourth year. And then once I started to understand it, and I internalized it, then it became, informed my work more. And those early years, I was doing like a lot of voices. I was doing like a lot of, just kind of seeing something funny that happened and then trying to kind of recreate it, which didn't ever really seem to work to me until I was able to. And then once I kind of harnessed those fundamentals, they really became my like building blocks that I would always go back to. And then I think probably, maybe a little bit later than that, around year 6 or 7, I started kind of being able to use those fundamentals of comedy in a more organic way, where I would do a lot of writing exercises and maybe never not get anything, and then
Mhm.
later something would kind of come out from my subconscious. So I have these like magical experiences of just having a joke come to me.
Mhm.
And I think that's closer to what happens to me now.
Do you have particular times and events when jokes come to you?
Well, I'm very rigid. I'm a very rigid person, so I usually write about at least 1 to 2 hours a day in the morning. So in the first hour of the morning, I'll get some good jokes. I'll get some of those. Then later in the shower, maybe, or during a workout, I'll get something will kind of come to me, and then the other times will be just hanging around with friends, goofing around with
Mhm.
friends. And those are usually where I get my most brilliant ideas, because you have already like a little bit of built-in feedback. When you say something and somebody laughs at it, it almost gives you the
Mhm.
confidence that you need to turn it into something.
Mhm. Do you and I'm not as rigid as you, as a matter of fact, I'm not rigid at all, and but my premises come to me, it's almost always the same thing. I'm driving
Mhm.
or I'm getting ready to go to sleep, and
Mm.
if at my age, if I don't write them down or put them in my phone or something like that, they're just gone. So I
Yeah.
have to I can't tell you how many times I've pulled off to the side of the road and put my premise down so I wouldn't forget it, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten up out of bed and put my premise in the phone so I wouldn't wake my wife up. And so I it's funny. I talk you're like probably my 104th, 105th interview, and it's almost split down the middle. There's the ones who make it a habit. Okay, I'm going to write X amount of hours every day and take the good stuff from that and work with it. And there's folks that work it out on stage, and there's also folks that just are like me, and it just comes to them and they write whenever they feel like it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you, in your comedy community, in your comedy friends, do you have different types of people like that write differently, and how
Yeah,
how do
absolutely.
you get inspiration from people who do it different than you?
Well, I mean, me personally, I'm very type A, so for me, it's actually really helpful to hang out with somebody and joke around, somebody who is going a little bit at a more relaxed pace, maybe somebody who's a little bit more in touch with their intuition. I think that's something that I could definitely benefit from, and I am trying to benefit from. I think, like, in New York City, the culture is very like grinding, working. And certainly in the open mic scene, which is where I was kind of starting out, it was all about getting up as much as you can, writing as many new jokes as you can, never doing the same joke, so many times at a show, and having that kind of high turnover rate. And so I think, for me, it's actually better to hang out with somebody that's a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more in touch with their own intuition. And that's where I'm trying to go
Mhm.
as an artist. And instead of feeling like I have to write every single day because that's what I do and that's how I get
Mhm.
through the morning without spiraling
Yeah.
mentally, I have to do this, instead being like, maybe I can tap into myself and think like, what do I really need to do today? Maybe I need to go for a walk, or, and that's so for me, hanging out with somebody has a way less structure is actually much more helpful.
Yeah, yeah, it helps even you out a little bit.
Yeah.
How did the Colbert appearance come about?
Oh, it was a really actually very, I think, typical magical comedy story where I was just performing around town. I was really working on a tight set that I was hoping to use for my JFL audition, and I was scouted. I was at a club where a friend of mine, he happened to be running his Colbert set,
Mhm.
and the booker was there, and she was there to watch him, but I went on first and she saw me, and it just went immediately from send in the tape. I had been working on another tape that I had ready for submission,
Uh-huh.
and it was just that serendipity of being in the right place at the right time and having the right level of preparation, that I sent the tape. I met her for coffee and she said, okay, good to go. And then it was just
Wow.
from there. So it's important to remind yourself that things like that can happen, as I am now 4 years later, and waiting for my next big special thing.
Yeah, it's the old adage, the harder you work, the luckier you get, and, I've used that one a lot. Now, I watched that performance, it's on, YouTube, and I watched that, and I was, I had listened to your album first, and I didn't even really know what you look like, and when I saw you up there, I thought you did such a great job of your performance was great. It was you used the body language and used your hands and talking about the glasses and things like that, and you really the performance part was good enough that I mean, you got a couple really nice applause breaks on that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And that was the first time I heard Weighted Blanket too, and that was and I gotta the social commentary about the healthcare and the chicken soup with the, uh, low grade chicken, so you can get the antibiotics out of it, I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I was happy with the performance of it, although I think sometimes when you're in a bigger space, you have to really slow down the way that you talk,
Mm,
and it's really tricky to like maintain an organic momentum when you do
mhm,
that. So I think that's why I think one reason why I do prefer like a smaller space where you can go a little bit faster and you can kind of feed off of the
mhm.
speed and the energy. Although it is something I have a challenge of, like I love to just speak really fast and just be feeling that energy like I'm jogging along, and then I'll
Yeah,
listen to the tape. I'm like, oh my god, I'm speeding
yeah.
so badly.
Well, I thought it didn't look like you were I just thought it was a really, really good performance, and I think the audience really, really liked it, and,
Oh, thank you so
yeah.
much.
Yeah, I
Thank
was
you.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, one of the things and I talked to a lot of comedians that are getting ready to put out an album, whether it's their 1st or their 5th, and, you're actually self-producing your album, and I I wanted you to take me through what that first of all, what the benefits of self-producing are, and also what kind of behind the scenes work you have to do in order to get it done.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, I chose to self-produce because, it for me, it's just worth it to put in this extra administrative work to get the financial benefit of not having, I do think it is a little wild that it's such a huge chunk, that the labels will take from the artist. Something like, it's 50% to begin with if they're producing it, when it goes
Mhm,
on the air,
mhm.
and then another maybe 50% of the artist chunk as well. So it's a lot that goes to the labels, from what I understand. And I had a little insight after the pandemic. I have like a little insight where several different labels asked me if I was doing an album independently. So it was like at the same time, four different labels asked me. And I just thought to myself, if so many people are willing to produce my album right now out of nowhere, they must think that this is an easy way for them to make money.
Mhm.
So if it's an easy way for them to make money, there's no reason that I can't just do it and make the money myself.
It kinda reminds me of if you're putting your house up for sale by owner, a realtor coming and saying, "I can get you more money if I sell it."
Right, and I don't necessarily think that's true in my case, because I've
Yeah.
been doing stand-up in New York for 12 years. I've performed
Uh-huh.
all over the country. I have a lot of unique relationships that, I'm looking at some of these labels that have been, it's like if a label hasn't even been around for 12 years, like maybe they don't even have the relationships that I have.
Right.
And I'm very lucky also because my boyfriend is a stand-up comedian also, and he gave me the advice as well of, I think you should self-produce. I'm willing to help you, if you need any kind of counseling or advice about it. And so just from him giving me that advice and talking to some other comedians that I know giving me the same advice, I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna do it myself, and I'm pretty good at learning to do things. So I think, um what, like, if I was paying myself $25 an hour to do this extra work, it's just like having a day job, isn't it? Which I
Right.
need anyway. So
Right. So, what are the nuts and bolts of it? Because you've got a finished product that I heard, and it's coming out on March 18th,
yes.
and so what I know you record it, and you usually do a couple sets so that you take the best out of 2 sets, and so where do you find somebody to do a quality recording? How do you get somebody to do your graphics, your art and stuff like that? And then how do you get it distributed when you do it yourself?
Okay, so there is a club here in New York where I live. It's called New York Comedy Club, and they have sound recording equipment. So I was able to buy out the club and buy out the recording from them.
Mhm.
So I used my own budget for that. I sold a lot of tickets to the show, and it helped offset the cost of
Mhm.
it. So I haven't done a show in New York in like, I mean, it's been at least since before the pandemic. It may be
Uh,
like 3 or 4 years. So I had a few people that, you meet people and they're like, I'd love to come to the show. And it's like, well, now I'm calling that person.
yeah.
I'm imposing myself on them
Right.
to come to my performance. So setting up the show was a huge effort. Um, I got the recording from they have a whole setup in the club. They have a recordist. He handle everything. He gives it to me. Then I got an editor again through friends. I got an editor, paid the editor. Meanwhile, I'm also doing video. The art was an old photo that I had done before the pandemic, which I had never released. So, I'm
Mhm.
always doing like photos, at least once a year, just getting headshots updated and doing like comedy portraits and stuff. So I just used an old photo just for the sake of my own budget.
Mhm.
I made the cover art myself on a website called Canva. Just
Okay.
typed it in.
Yeah.
And then I uploaded it to CD Baby, which is like an option for, they're really more geared for independent musicians.
Mhm.
But I uploaded it through that website. So they actually take care of all of the distributing. They distribute it
Okay.
to any streaming platform, iTunes, all of that. So that was actually pretty easy. That was pretty easy. And
Mm.
then just submitted it via myself to Sirius XM. So hopefully it'll get on the radio. And I did hire a publicist. That was my main big expense, was hiring the publicist.
Mhm.
And I just decided to do that because I am working more now than I was when I started, and I think it's even worth it for me to pay like even a medium-sized publishing budget, a one-time payout, than to have,
Mhm.
a lot of the labels will offer to take care of that for you, but you owe them, you're giving them money until forever.
Mhm.
So I just said, oh, you know what, I'll pay it out of my own pocket, whatever. And then my other big expense was I paid for the club to record me, and then I'm paying for video editing. And so I'll be using my little clips. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
that was basically it. And I have to say, like, I am not that smart of a person, but like, I do my own taxes every year. And I kind of do the thing where like, I just like click through. I'm just like, okay, hoping for the best, hoping for the best. And I think like that's just, if I was more type A than I am, it would be impossible for me to do this because it has been confusing like various stages. But I just have been operating under the assumption that someone will tell me if I'm doing something really wrong. And
Mhm.
here we are. I'm about to release it, so hopefully everything is fine.
Yeah, that's great. It's funny you mentioned CD Baby because I found this group years and years ago that they weren't on any streaming platforms because I think the only streaming platform was Napster where you were stealing music,
Hmm.
and I really liked them. And the only place I could get their CDs was CD Baby, and
Hmm.
now they're on some of the streaming platforms. I stay away from Spotify because they don't pay people and they ripped off a bunch of comedians. So I
Yeah.
listen to them on what's it called? Tidal. Tidal's the one I listen to. So
Oh, nice. Very
Spotify
nice.
doesn't get any more of my money. You really touched on something as far as what it takes. Oh, I wanted to mention your publicist too, because you got a good one. She's smart enough to recognize that to seize on an opportunity because I contacted her about somebody else and she gave me you and Alex Hooper. And, I wouldn't have even thought to approach you if I hadn't seen you before. And I just she's doing a good job because some
Good.
publicists just totally blow me off. They're
Yeah.
like, he's not interested, she's not interested, or they don't even return my email. And guess what? Podcasts do help. And so you got a smart one.
Good, good. Well, she came highly recommended, and I have been totally blown away by her. She's excellent. So
Yeah, yeah, she's doing a great job. But one of the things you brought up is, okay, stand-up comedy is your vocation now, and you've got a work ethic that you do, but there's also the money you take in and the expenses. So you talked about the expenses of getting headshots every year. You've got the expenses of self-producing this album, which will hopefully reap the benefits of, if when you get on Sirius, you get all of the, I think, $3.62 per play instead of half of it. So,
yeah, God
hopefully
willing.
yeah. You get that back. So, how do you balance the books at the end of the year and feel like you're moving forward?
I am not smart with finances. I don't
Okay.
know what I'm doing. I try not to spend that much money. I try to really keep my overhead low. Until pretty recently, I was living, I think, on $1,000 a month.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I just really try to keep my overhead low. I don't have a special comedy account. I have been really lucky over the years that I've made large amounts of money for small projects that I've just put into, my IRAs, my mutual funds. So I'd say like probably only these big chunks of money move me forward. And
Okay.
everything else is just, if it's over my monthly expenses, then I'm like, okay, this is just money for me to get a facial or something. But
Uh-huh.
I know I wish I could be more meticulous with my financial records. I've always tried to be like one of those people that's like money coming in, money going out, but I just don't and I can't. I think I just can't. So, I don't know how to answer that. I guess I feel like I'm moving forward in terms of I can see which work I'm booking that's paying me. So right now I
Mhm.
mostly make money from doing road work and from doing spots around town.
Mhm.
So basically my road work that I do pays for my living expenses. And
Okay.
then anything I get over that, I just spend it.
Mhm. You sound a lot like me. Um, I want to switch gears a little bit because I'm going to talk to Tammy Pescatelli. Have you ever heard of Tammy?
Yes,
Uh,
I think I worked with her before. I
okay.
think I've met her. I met her right after I remember she was something terrible happened to her because someone threw a glass of wine at her head at a show.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep,
And
yep.
I think I worked with her right after that happened at
Yeah,
Gotham City.
she gets some strong reactions sometimes, but I'm a big fan, but I'm starting to watch. It's called the what is it? The Funny Ladies of Comedy or something like that. It's a Showtime show, and
Funny,
there's
you gotta
two.
have a certain age.
Yeah, there you go. And it's funny. I just watched it last night, and I'm listening to some of the horror stories that they went through being a woman in comedy. And Tammy mentioned that she was sharing a condo with a rapist for like 10
Oh,
days,
oh my
and
goodness.
she couldn't do anything else because she had to get paid. And
Right.
I just hear all the things that have happened through the years, and then things are supposed to be better now, and yet I talk to a lot of female comedians that say, in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. So how is it for you?
Well, I've definitely had my share of stories of, creepy behavior and rapey behavior. But it's hard to say now because I think that I'm at a level in my career where a lot of people know me or at least know my boyfriend. So I'm a little bit shielded from that, which, is absolutely misogynistic,
Yeah.
that somebody isn't going to come on to me because they know my boyfriend.
Mhm.
But I think it's definitely better than it was, it seems, for me when I started comedy. I think as you kind of move up, comedy is such a entry level thing where anybody can do it, especially in New York, especially around when I started 2010. It was the big comedy bubble where everybody was going to UCB and going to the open mics, and it would just be like, three women. I would go to these open mics with like three women, and it would just be like tons of guys. And there was definitely some times where I was like, wow, this is not, whatever is happening here is not safe. But even recently, I mean, when I go on the road a lot, I do get talked down to by, like, I think in other places outside of New York where people do comedy a little more casually, there's more room for bad behavior to kind of like slip through the cracks.
Oh
I
yeah.
think here I think here it's like you don't really get to move up to doing good paid work unless you have social support. And I
Yeah.
don't think people really openly tolerate people that they've heard bad stories about. But I did have a situation. Actually, this has to do with my album recording. I was at the Comedy Cellar, and there was a guy who came into my private conversation I was having with another comedian. He didn't work at the Cellar. He later said he was a comedian from, I don't know, some other state. He had been, he was coming, sitting at the table with us uninvited, and really imposing himself and coaching me that I was going to do great on the album recording. And I just felt like, as a woman, I just feel terrified to confront anybody, because I've had times where, like an audience member, like after the show was heckling, tried to hug me. I said, no, followed me down the street, So I never confront anybody. But he was really like imposing himself, going on. And then he was asked to leave, and he acted like I was supposed to say, oh no, stay. I know him, which I don't. I was grateful that he was asked to leave because he was being really obnoxious. And
Yeah.
then he went on my Instagram account and harassing me. I posted something, it's my big moment tomorrow, I'm recording my album, harassing me through the comments, tagging my boyfriend, tagging the Comedy Cellar. And I just thought, that's something I don't think that a lot of male comedians put up with, because I think if I was a man, I don't think this other guy would have felt the need to connect with me in a way that was like putting himself on a higher power level than
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean? Like coming to
Yeah.
me from like a place of like, oh, you're gonna be okay, and I know because I'm so much more experienced. I was like, there's no way that you have anywhere near the experience that I have.
Hmm.
You're acting like this in a way that's like very green and totally inappropriate. But so I think, but on the other hand, I do think male comedians do deal with psychosis from fans in a different form.
Ah,
So,
can you elaborate on that?
well, I think I've talked with my boyfriend about it, and he said, he's had women come up to him after the show and, kind of get confrontational to him in a way where, maybe there was like a perceived power dynamic, and they felt that they needed to, have the upper hand. I
Mhm.
don't know. Does that make sense? Nothing specific is coming to mind, but
Yeah.
that's one of the I guess challenges I've had as a female comedian, or one of the specific experiences that I have. I've definitely had many other situations where I've felt in an unsafe work environment, but
Mhm.
not in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not since I've had like a lot of more professional accomplishments, I would say.
Right. Do you still feel or do you feel that it's more of a level playing field as far as being a meritocracy, and just being funny is good enough, and you don't need to fill so many man slots and so many women slots?
No, I don't. I think that politics plays a huge role in comedy still. I don't think it's a meritocracy at
Okay.
all, but I do think that I think women are. I don't think there's a debate about whether women are funny or not. as
Mhm,
there was when I started in 2010. I remember it
mhm,
was like constantly being debated. So
mhm.
I
One of
think,
the
oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's okay. One of the conversations I've had with a few comedians is that, the audience dynamic has changed a lot in especially the time that from when you started in the last 10 or 12 years, and that sometimes you can have 3 generations of people sitting at a table. You can have grandma and grandpa, and you can have mom and dad, and the grown kids all at the same table. Do you feel like the audiences that you're playing to are, first of all, diverse and a lot of different, folks represented, age groups and, cultures and stuff like that? And how do you change or how do you massage your act to make as many people in the room laugh as you can?
Well, I do find that my, shows are pretty diverse usually, and also because I perform in different places in the country, I'm exposed to, for example, casinos where people sometimes often older, or I love to go to, like, I was in Seattle last weekend, and then at the end of this month, Seattle's very liberal, smart, and fun. Those are
Mhm.
usually the metrics that I like to categorize the audience. For example, in a month from now, I'm going to Lawrenceville, Georgia, which is outside of Atlanta, and I would say they
Mhm.
are fun. They're not very liberal at all,
Yeah.
and maybe a little smart.
Yeah.
So I think I don't really adjust my performance. I do filthy material on a late show, and I do cleaner material on an early show, but
Mhm.
I think I'm lucky in a way because I'm very likable and non-threatening. So I think I'm a type of person that I naturally can go into a situation where it's like mostly elderly people. They like me, or
Mhm.
maybe a more liberal audience um, also likes me too. So
Mhm.
I don't usually have trouble.
That's good. I it's funny you mentioned Lawrence. Is it Lawrenceburg or Lawrenceville?
Lawrenceville.
Lawrenceville. So I'm in Huntsville, Alabama now. I come from the north in Indiana and not too far from Atlanta, about 2, 3 hours or something like that.
Hmm.
And it's been a little bit of a culture shock to me coming south, being my northern liberal self. And it's because Huntsville is it's pretty diverse in that a lot of people are transplants, and because they've got all the aerospace stuff and NASA and all the military stuff too. So you've got a lot of people not from around here, and then there's the folks that are from around here. And man, it's hardcore Bible Belt stuff and a lot different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, one of the things that I did when I was, um, coming up in New York City was that I would do a lot of check spots. I would do a lot of shows where I was just really focusing on my own survival and just getting a few laughs here and there. And I think that my material evolved to be, I do have a lot of one liners, and I
Mhm.
have a lot of jokes that are very punchy. And I think, those jokes usually work in like a range of more difficult settings.
Right, right. Yeah, and I like how you mix it up. I told you at the beginning how you mix it up with the one-liners and the two-liner misdirects and things like that, and then you can put a story about your boyfriend and it still has the same punch. So you do a really good job of mixing that.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned that you take your cue from being a fan of 80s and 90s comics. Which of the comics really stood out to you to give you the um, whatever it takes, the gumption to get into comedy?
Well, I was I didn't really get into comedy as a comedy fan. I watched a lot of comedy in the 90s, the late
Mm,
90s, when I was home from school in the summer. So I would watch
mm,
Comedy Central Premium Blend, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I would also watch Saturday Night Live. But at that time, I considered myself a serious actor,
Yeah.
somebody who wouldn't be getting into stand up. Although I do remember thinking, I remember kind of, as you do when you're, 11, 12, playing in my bedroom and kind of playing that I'm doing stand up and thinking I
Mhm.
would really have to be so much braver than I am now to
Mm.
try to get into it. And then, fast forward 10 years, I was literally running out of options and I just realized I didn't need bravery. I just needed to be desperate. So, but some of my favorite comics from that era, I've always loved David Tell. I think he's just so interesting and funny as a person. But at that time, I also loved what I would now consider more not my taste now, but Margaret Cho, early Margaret Cho,
Mhm.
Paula Poundstone. I was obsessed. Anything Paula Poundstone, I just thought was utterly hysterical. Eddie Izzard, who I do still think is very funny, but that his structure is, it's not really something I could model even.
Mm.
He's incredible. But stuff I think that's, they were like big personalities and
Mhm.
it was almost like very babyish.
Mhm.
But now my some of my favorite comedians from that era, I still love David Tell. I love everything he's done. But Wendy Liebman is someone that I discovered much
Yeah.
later who her style had a big influence on me. Her use of misdirection and
Mhm.
her kind of classic stage presence.
Yeah. Great. So you mentioned that this album is kind of a stopping point of one part of your career, and you mentioned thinking about trying to go in some different directions. What plans do you have after getting the album launched? Are you just still thinking about getting the album launched?
Well, I'm wrapping it up. I'm really just with, this week and next week I am going to be wrapping it up. I really want to work from a place that's more flow based and more intuitive than I have been before. I started to kind of tap into it during the pandemic. Um, when I had a lot of space and time to make that a priority. And
Mhm.
since then, I've been, kind of rushing around and a little bit lost sight of it. But I would like to work from a more organic, a more intuitive place. I want to maybe go less for shock jokes and more focusing on the humor of the mundane, the day to day humor of my life. And
Mhm.
I definitely want it to still be probably autobiographical. Um, but I think I would like to work from a place of, instead of feeling like I need to turn over material at a certain rate, give myself more of a time to develop it and see what comes from that. So I don't know. It's a little bit scary,
Yeah.
but I'm going off. I feel like I'm going, up to space in a little spaceship or something. But
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to be brave enough to, cut myself loose from that feeling of needing to churn out something just to have it.
Right, right. When you were coming up and learning the ropes, did you get any advice that from other comics that just changed your life, or any advice that was so bad that you were sorry you ever listened to it?
Hmm. I don't know that I got advice that often, but I did have a turning point in my um, experience, which I think I touched on it a little bit. It was right around, I think maybe year 3 or 4, where I was going to open mics. I was doing like 3 open mics every night. I was working my day job. I was performing a lot and really developing my stage presence, but my material was not coming along. It wasn't coming along with me. And I was going on stage and I was feeling great, but I didn't have the, fundamental skills that I needed to really write a great joke.
Mhm.
I was kind of spinning my wheels. I felt like I was kind of on this little hamster wheel of like just going nowhere, going nowhere. And I did have a good conversation with an old friend who had said, like, you need to take a break, completely take a break from performing, perform maybe 1 or 2 times a week and focus all of your energy on learning writing, learning writing, learning what you like, learning how to do it, and then come back after that but you can't really do both at once.
Mhm.
So that was a big turning point for me where I did get to, I think, like I said, there was this um, hustle culture in New York where it's like, if you're not working every day, if we don't see you working, then you're gone. You just fly off the face of the earth.
Mhm.
So it was scary for me to kind of go against that, but I did take some time away to really focus on internalizing the fundamentals of comedy in a way that I never had before, and it
Mhm.
definitely elevated my skill level, and it elevated, so I was able to kind of um, get to the next level because my material was good. So
Mhm.
that's really good advice for a lot of young people I see, a lot of younger comics I see, like, I want to get better, I want to get better. But it's like, well, what are you doing to get better? Are you just getting up on stage every night telling the same jokes?
Mhm.
Because I think the fastest way to be recognized as a good comedian is to have really good jokes. Because even people who are established comics, they still watch somebody, and if they see them, they have an incredible joke, not something that's like being done like taking a shower at your girlfriend's place.
Mhm.
Then I think that's the fastest way to elevate yourself in a way that's like meaningful and authentic.
Mhm. Did you ever take any writing classes or anything like that during the period?
No, I'm
Just did it.
completely self-taught.
Yeah. Good for you. Now, one of the things I like to ask everybody is, what 3 things do you know now that you wish you woulda known when you started?
Hmm. Oh, it's so tricky. Hmm. I don't know that I don't know. I guess I wish that I would have told myself, which I did eventually learn, is that like you have to advocate for yourself, especially as a woman. I think unfortunately women have a little bit of a skewed perception of how to operate in a business context because of the way that we're raised, where women are socialized to be like very aware of other people's emotions and to never impose upon other people, and men
Mhm,
aren't really socialized in that way at all. And comedy is a very male dominated industry, so that kind of behavior of never wanting to step on anyone's toes is not rewarded at all, and in fact it
mhm.
holds you way back.
Right,
So
right.
that's
Mhm,
one. And I guess I wish I would tell myself, I think I would I I'm not sure. I have always really struggled with social anxiety, so I think I would maybe tell myself that um I don't need to worry as much, maybe. I'm not sure. It's something that I kind of was able to like work through, and now, I'm like I can talk to anyone for like 2 minutes,
mhm.
and I'm like totally drained. But I do remember feeling very anxious, especially in a male dominated scene.
Mhm,
I was very nervous to, like say hi to people and make friends because it wasn't really a very open and welcoming environment.
right.
So I wish I had been a little bit, but I am proud of myself. I actually am proud of myself for just sticking with it and going,
Mhm,
even like going to a place where no one in the room and everybody else knows each other. So I
mhm.
guess I guess I already did know that one.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say is, oh yeah, don't get coffee with anyone who wants to write together, because
Oh.
that's a ploy.
Oh, that's one of the memes, the one of the comic friends I know does all the time. "We should write together." Yeah,
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's a ploy. It never goes the way you think. You're
yeah,
like, "We should write together. You should write your number down for me."
yeah. Um, Tell me a little bit about the podcast.
Oh, it's my new pride and joy. Lady Journey is something I started with my close friend Sarah Talamash, who is an incredible comedian. She has a special available on her YouTube channel. It's called Voluptuous Boy. Her writing is just incredible.
Mhm,
She has her own very highly unique, quirky, comedic voice. She's almost like a Maria Bamford in a way. She doesn't
That
do characters and voices, but in the uniqueness of her style.
mhm,
And so she and I decided, we want to start a podcast together. We want it to be something that's um we this is one of the first times I'm really ever reaching out to an audience that I feel like I've resonated with. I think something I had to learn was my audience is not the same as the audience of many of my contemporaries. I
mhm,
work with a lot of male comedians who have been really successful tapping into a highly male audience. And I thought for a long time that maybe that was the right direction to go in. And now I realize that I need to connect with the people that my comedy resonates with. So we
mhm.
made it highly specialized for this audience. I'm calling it the brunch crowd. So ladies and guys, of course, but guys who go to brunch.
Yeah.
Our podcast is about self-help. It's kind of a comedic lifestyle podcast. So we do a little self-help. We talk about, everyone's on a journey. I'm on a journey of trying to decorate my apartment, and it's got ups and downs.
Mhm,
So it's very comedic, but it's also a little bit of advice and style, lifestyle,
mhm.
culture, and we love it, and it's been really successful so far. So I would love it if people would check it out, because I think it's hilarious. It's like I'm calling it's like Martha Stewart, uh, but high.
Yeah.
Even though we don't really do any drugs or anything like that, but
Yeah.
that's the kind of the vibe that we're putting off.
Yeah, yeah. I listened to the one episode where you talked about making the album, and I thought it was pretty good.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you very
yeah.
much.
And I'm just a regular guy, so, I
Mhm.
think anybody would like it. So, yeah, really like it. So, folks, check out the Lady Journey podcast. It's very easy to find. Just type in Lady Journey podcast, and you're good to go.
Yes, and we also have a Lady Journey companion blog now, if you like to
Oh,
read
cool.
blogs. We're doing the show notes, and then we're also doing tons of other articles and fun stuff on there.
Mhm. That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but I'm at the point in my career where I'm outsourcing a little bit of stuff, so I'm getting
Mhm.
to focus on doing the stuff that I love, and it's a great experience.
That's good. That's good. Cool. And, where can folks find you on the social medias?
I'm on Instagram at Katie Hannigan Forever. And I would love it if people would follow me on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter at Katie Hannigan. And those are my two main ones that I'm on. I'm on TikTok right now, but I don't know what I'm doing on there.
Yeah.
So maybe in the future, but Instagram and Twitter. Twitter, I'm mostly posting, topical jokes. I post a lot of material on Twitter. Instagram is a little more curated for my
Yeah. Yeah.
podcast.
You know, uh, y Instagram has become, like, the only thing that I really pay attention to anymore. I like Instagram because there's just the pictures and a caption, and it's so easy. It's so easy to flip, and reels are fun. I like it.
They are. I enjoy them too.
Yeah, the algorithm's kinda weird, though. I mean, it sends me some stuff that I have no idea why they sent it, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you, and like I said, the album is coming out here on the 18th, "Feeling of Emptiness." I liked it. I listened, twice through, and I on the way to Birmingham, on the way back to from Birmingham, so it was really good because it lasted, just about as long as the drive, and, it was just perfect. And I like the cliffhanger. I like the the closer, the
Ah!
you it pissed me off and made me laugh at the same time. So,
Well,
folks, you
we
gotta buy the album if you wanna know why I got pissed off.
yes, the video will be available soon. So
Yeah.
that's all I can say. That is all I can say.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for being on the show. It was great to get to know you.
Thank you. This was delightful. I really appreciate it, Scott.
And